everyone. Welcome to episode 1 of your new favorite podcast. I'm Tracey Schroeder, and I'm excited to talk to you today about some issues going on in the state of California. What's going on is huge. In fact, you might not know it, but our current state assembly voted in to increase our electric bill this July, right when we're starting to roast. They raised our property taxes, which hurts homeowners as well as renters, and they're failing to protect the kids. So we're here today to go into some of the issues and get some real talk from real people to learn what's going on in California. So I'd like you to meet today. I'm excited about, we have a special guest, and today you're going to get a chance to meet Matthew Jones. He's a writer. He's a person who lives on planet Earth, who I'm proud to be with.
Yeah.
You, Matthew, thanks for coming today.
Absolutely. I'm so happy to be here. And yeah, you're running for assembly. You're doing a great thing. You're running to help the state of California from basically plummeting into a terrible place. But a little more about me. I'm 20 years old. Yeah, I'm a writer. I'm a political activist. I've been with Turning Point since high school, and I'm a young Republican. So, I'm trying to help California as well.
Awesome, Matthew. So let's learn more about you. So,
sure, let's do it.
So tell us about. Let's back up a couple of years.
Yeah. Let's talk about high school.
Okay.
I mean, we all know about the COVID crisis and how that really affected us all. One thing that really came up about that was the mask, and I'm sure everyone knows about the mask. Whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, you have your own idea about it. But to me, I was like, you know what? I don't see the correlation of wearing a mask and a virus with a 99.3.
Let's back up a little bit. So
okay.
So you had a pretty traumatic experience in high school.
Yeah.
Okay. So when did you first hear the word COVID, or that something was coming down the pipes?
Totally. Well, I think my sister was the first one to actually tell me about that. And my initial reaction was, oh, great, we don't have to go to school.
What grade were you in?
I think I was in my sophomore year.
Okay. Yeah. So for me, I was a teacher at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being in the hardware store, needing to actually purchase a mask for some construction work that I was going to be around. And for me, it was a big shock that there were no masks in the store. And the guy at the store said, that's because there's something going on in China, and they're not sending their masks to America. So for construction purposes, for debris, that you don't want to inhale, like, wood and wall pieces. So for me, that was the moment of what's going on in China.
Mm-hmm.
And then people in the lunchroom were talking about an actor who had, what was it, Tom Hanks or someone like that, right? That there was that he had something, and I said, "What do you mean? He has the flu? Like, what is this?" Yeah. So for you, totally. Your sister said something.
Yeah, she told me that there's a virus and we don't have to go to school anymore.
Yeah.
And like I said, I was ecstatic. I was like, oh, great, I get to go do my own thing now and, go hang out with my friends and play video games or whatever it is young boys do.
You didn't hear it from your teachers at school? For you, it was...
No, it was totally just inner family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then did you go back to school the next day, or was that done?
It was pretty much done.
That was it?
Yeah.
So you didn't go into school and your teachers didn't pack you up with books and things?
No. Yeah.
No?
They just I mean, I think they continued with the online.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But
did you have school online? Did you have...
Yeah, there was school online.
Mm-hmm. And did you know what that was? And was there an email that said you're going to join in a Zoom or something like that?
Uh-huh.
What was it like?
I think they did send out emails and stuff. But yeah, that was over in Orange County. And I'm not sure how was it in LA? When did it hit in LA?
They told us ahead by about a day or so. They said you're going to be packing up all your students
Oh my
with all
gosh.
their books. They said it's going to be 2 weeks. And
Yeah, right.
right? And well, that's what someone said to me. One of the other teachers said, it's going to be much longer than that. It could be a year. I thought, what in the world? And so we gave them all their books, made made lesson plans, like what they could be reading and things like that, and thought, what in the world is this? And then the kids were sent home. And at the end of the day, and there was the following Monday, we were emailing, we were sending videos, and we didn't even know, what are we going to do? How are we going to come across to our classes, And so people were trying things, Blackboard, Zoom, I remember my sister introduced me to Zoom and we did a practice and, okay, this could work. This could work. So it was all new. And so finally we were able to send out the message. We were using a platform called Schoology and sending, our lesson plans on there. We'd been using it for grades, but never for something like this. So it was a major learning curve. And meanwhile, we needed to have space to be able to actually teach. So I got permission. I needed to teach from the school. So as the kids were coming on and learning through the screen, I was at the school and they would say, when do we get to come back? And I would say over time every day, I'm here, come back. The rabbits took over the playground. It was horrible.
I know. Yeah, you were telling me that. I was like, how do animals take over what was meant to be a human civilized, area?
Right.
And I guess that's all due to like that decision.
Yeah. But it was different for every age group. So I teach elementary school kids, but I have family members of different grade levels, right? So I had kids in my family were in other schools where they were having, like, one family member, teenager, my nephew had Spanish and what was it? Something like Spanish and PE. Those were his only classes. Wait, what about math? What about language arts? What about, all your other classes?
The core studies.
His were very contained. And I thought, how is he going to even learn Spanish like this? Crazy. So to me, and I don't know what was it like for you? Did one teacher reach out to you, your homeroom? Because that was the end of the school year.
Well, going into my junior year was when they really started to use Zoom. And, I just remember it being so much different, so much more, almost like Orwellian, like the whole structure had changed. And now everyone is staring at a black glass piece of technology every single day for 5 days a week, instead of going out, interacting with each other, going out, being athletic. You're not getting that anymore. You're being focused into this technological space. There's not a lot that you can do with that besides using your thumb and your finger.
Yeah.
So it's not a lot of opportunity, but
right.
We dealt with it. So I went to my classes and, got the grades that I got good grades. And it was really boring.
Did you, I was going to ask, because it's one thing, like a grade, who knows, like what was the grade? But were you learning?
I mean, it was not much about was I learning, it was about what I was learning. And a lot of the content, especially my English classes, they were very, very different from what I've grown up learning.
Yeah.
I grew up, reading novels, reading literature, and now they're teaching us things about literal, like, witchcraft. I'm not saying that as like a token of big words. I'm saying they were literally teaching us the definitions of witchcraft, and I'm like,
this was in your language arts class?
In my language arts class, yeah.
Was it a novel you were studying? How did that come about?
Yeah, it had to do with the, I think, like, Salem witch trials or stuff like that, but they really, like, hammered on that, and I just remember that being they just hammered you with that, and it was, like, so different, it was so dark.
Yeah.
I remember all my content that I was, learning, it was very dark, especially in my last year, in my senior year. It was just very depressing, kinda literature. I didn't enjoy it.
Was
I
it?
enjoyed reading my Bible, my Aristotle, my philosophers,
Mm-hmm.
my religious doctrines, and things that were uplifting, things that had heroism, things that were so much different from, like, people murdering each other and trying to, like, create a story, and that, like, what do we really have to gain from learning those besides, like, not doing it, you know?
Right. I have a question for you because so I remember my one of my favorite courses in high school, my senior year, was a humanities class,
Mm,
and we studied the great books of the Western world,
yeah.
and then we would read novels, and then we would use the great books to answer questions like what is truth, what is beauty, um, some of the big questions, and so to using the
Wow.
context of the novel, we would then bring in different philosophers and then to write our essays
Yeah.
and then do different activities to bring it out. We'd rap, we'd put on a skit, something like that.
Well, how sad, because we've lost that in the public school system. The public school system has not, implemented that kind of workload into education anymore. It's really sad.
So I'm curious, and I think a lot of people would be wondering how did that, you were saying that
Mhm.
they were teaching you witchcraft, but how does that even come in, right? So you read
Yeah.
about the Salem witch trials, and then there was a lot of emphasis on it, or were you writing?
There was a lot of emphasis just, and you know, I don't even want to get into it because, I
Okay.
mean, it was just so dark. But I mean, even when I went to community college at Fullerton College, oh my gosh, like, they were teaching things that literally would blow your mind and be like, yeah, that like, I wish I had never seen that, you know?
Oh wow. So
So it's
sometimes
really the public school system, yeah.
when something like that comes up, like there's that moment of, did that just happen? Did they just say that? Am I supposed to just sit here and, like
Yeah,
for me
and
as a
that's a
teacher,
good
there's
point.
many times where we have to take a training and we have to answer questions, and their answer is the right answer, whether I agree with it or not, right? And you have to pass it with their answers and you have to get a perfect score.
Mm,
And so in moments, if there's something that I disagree with, was there an opportunity for you to speak up, to say something? Did you feel like
yeah.
how did you respond?
I believe I did. I believe that I kind of made the emphasis on, like, this really is dark, and I think I kind of counteracted that, those instructions of the same of witchcraft and darkness, murder, all that kind of stuff. I think I wrote a lot in my essays about, just the negative impact on that on society. Um, and we can get into that more actually on the collegiate level, where I was writing very heavily in favor of, what we were talking about, heroism, the Western culture, what has made the world great,
Hmm.
which is character, morality. And that's something that I wrote a lot in my essays, counteracting. And you know I, how about we get into it, the collegiate level? They were teaching about torture porn. And
What?
I know that
What?
sounds crazy, but
Yeah.
that's what Fullerton College has been teaching. And those are the schools that are sending kids to the universities like
Hmm.
Cal State Fullerton.
Right.
Those are the types of institutions that are that are growing our teachers.
Hmm.
They're actually teaching our teachers. Um, I wouldn't even want to call them teachers anymore. I just call
Hmm.
them something else, because they're not teaching what is good.
Hmm. So I'm curious about that. Like, for example, I when I was at UCLA,
Hmm.
I was a communication studies major, and one of my classes was like communication 114 or something like that, or 104. And but it also doubled as it had another name, which was something like Gen 106. And there weren't other options. And so there's a certain, like, you had a selection, and that was the only one that fit in my schedule. So I signed up for it.
Not
But
knowing what it was.
I didn't know what I expected. I was going to be learning more, on communication. But
Yeah.
instead, what was required was this novel that included, I mean, it was a novel about, it was talking about, I mean, there was a rape, there were all these things in it that
Yeah.
I wouldn't have chosen
Just
that
things
to
that are like
read.
objectively
Mhm,
really inappropriate, really
mhm,
disgusting. Like
mhm,
if you showed this to anyone on the streets,
mhm.
what would they say? Would they say,
Right,
"Oh yeah, like I remember reading that. That was a great thing, and I loved reading that." No, you're not gonna get that. I
right,
mean, you might get that with some people,
right.
but in reality, when you show somebody that kind of content, the natural brain automatically just is wired to react in a negative way. Like what? You
Mhm.
know?
So did you complete the course? Did you graduate from Cal State Fullerton?
Yeah, no, I didn't
You
continue with
said
Fullerton
enough.
College. I was done with that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see myself wasting my time with
Mm-hmm.
that kind of content. I mean, it was just absurd. It was absurd to be. I mean, the stuff that they were teaching was. I remember this one pamphlet they gave us was on the content of torture porn and its relation to 9/11. I'm not sure how you make the correlation. They were also teaching about um like horror disabilities, people with disabilities in the horror genre, murdering. They showed this. I mean, you
Was
know,
it a film class? Like, what is this?
it was critical thinking.
Huh.
Yeah, it was critical thinking, English
Right.
103. Um, so if you go to Fullerton College, don't take that class. Don't
Wow.
maybe go somewhere else. Maybe take a trade. But they were teaching, not even teaching. They were just indoctrinating us with this
Mm-hmm.
dark content.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that they were showing us was a movie, and it had all to do with murder. It had all to do with you know parental problems, child abuse. There was this one scene where the girl got drenched in pig blood,
Oh,
and it's like, yeah, the reason we're talking about this right now is
right.
because why is this the kind of stuff that is found in our schools? Like in reality, why are we even talking about this? I
Right.
wish I wish this was not even in
Right.
existence. I wish we could be talking about the great architecture that has been found in Rome, or
Right.
the great writings in Greece, or the great engineering that has come from the European nations, from America, from Asia. But instead we're looking at things like torture porn.
Right.
I
What in
don't
the
I don't I
world?
don't see this going in the right direction, and I see
Mhm.
society on the road of not only um a societal collapse, but a mental collapse of the
Right.
mind.
Right.
Like when you keep showing especially young kids this type of content, what's going to happen?
Right.
They're going to be inclined to look these things up. They're going to be inclined to even like this content. The more you bombard somebody with something, the more that they're going to be interested in it, because that's the only thing that is really shown and
That's
on their
right.
mind.
Yep.
So, I mean, the reason we're talking about this, guys, is because it's an epidemic, really, of the school system and what is being taught.
Well, it's a strange fixation,
Oh yeah,
right? Where people, I guess, there's a push. I mean, I have teacher friends who are taking trainings, and similar to what you just shared,
yeah.
it's stuff they don't even want to say what it is that they're being trained
It's all
to.
gender studies. It's all um, things that would teach you that there were multiple genders or things.
Mhm.
It's like
Well,
it's just crazy things.
it's things that are just frankly embarrassing and inappropriate to talk to kids about, right?
Yeah,
That your
I mean,
school is where you're learning and
yeah.
preparing for life.
The Bible says something about how it's even shameful to talk about the things of the dark. And this is dark stuff that we're talking about. Like I
Right.
said, I just can't believe it even exists.
So you lived it. I mean, you are an eyewitness, as I am, to, to your own experience and what you've seen and what happened. And it was enough to say, you said that's enough.
I mean, I just look at it from a very objective standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, the human mind is not wired to look at these very inappropriate types of content. It's as simple as that. You know,
Right.
I'm not judging, saying, oh, you're a bad person because you're showing kids things about torture porn. I mean, I have all the grace in the world for people like that. But if we look at the objective truth, maybe you shouldn't be doing that.
Right.
Maybe the scientific research that has been shown with showing people things like porn,
Yeah.
and like all these like very dark things, it has an impact on development of the mind.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So here's my question for you. After going through that, and when you,
Let's get back to high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, before we do,
Yeah.
I want to ask you, so out of that, you made new plans?
Yes.
Because at least I know a place where you landed, because I had the privilege of getting to read an article that you wrote.
Yes.
You're an excellent writer.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So how did that come about?
Yeah, well, I know some contacts at the Epoch Times, and I wrote an article where I interviewed Devin Nunez. He's the CEO of Truth Social, and I basically wrote an article about the truth of social media, titled "The Truth About Social Media,"
Mm-hmm.
and it ranged from censorship, from big tech companies like Facebook, Twitter, now known as X.
Yeah.
And it ranged from shadow banning to, let's get into the stories. There was a doctor, an epidemiologist from Stanford University, and he came out with the claim that COVID lockdowns are not good for the
Right.
development of children.
Right.
He said,
Is that Dr. Bhattacharya?
yes.
Yeah.
And he's a doctor, so he probably knows a little more than the average Joe. And he said that. And it's funny because the Twitter files came out saying that he was to be put on a blacklist almost.
Right. And for
Or
those who don't
whatever
know,
you
the
call
Twitter
it.
files is the documentation that came out that Elon Musk and when Twitter was changed hands,
Yeah.
and then Elon opened up.
It was a bunch of content that was
Mm-hmm.
given to a bunch of reporters and writers, and they shared that with the world. And thank God for free speech, at least in that area where it still exists. Because if we had not had learned that, we wouldn't know about how the FBI works with these big institutions to basically try and, get censorship
Right.
going.
Right. I mean, on what you were talking
Especially
about.
with conservatives. Yeah.
So you are saying you felt very censored.
Well, there's a lot of conservatives that have been censored,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think I've posted a bunch of things on Instagram, and you get those fact checkers on your tail. So the fact checking is really something that I guess I've landed a little bit of victim of, but they're mainly other people's posts. So I wouldn't say that I've been censored. I just say that the whole organization of the conservative movement
Mm-hmm.
has been why is it that they're being censored? Why isn't it that people on the other side aren't?
So I'm curious, have you been censored?
No. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
That's a start, right? Because I mean, one of the most important things is the freedom to be able to speak up, speak out, so that you're not just trapped in silence. I mean, if we don't have free speech, what do we have?
Mm-hmm.
So
Totally.
yeah. So I want to go two different directions, but
Let's do it.
you mentioned learning loss, and I wanted to add to that. The children that I deal with, they've suffered such extreme learning loss. Their grade levels behind, and making it up is a journey because foundational skills were lost, right? The kiddos that I taught in at that time it was third grade. We still got their 5-paragraph, their what is it? Their 5-paragraph essays got done with research. It just got done very differently, right? And unfortunately, a lot of kids are lacking in even the dexterity to write. And some of the fallout I've been learning is kids even now. I have got a friend who's got a first grade class, and those kids are not writing. Those kids, and they're smart. It's a gifted class, but all their homework is online, and it's click, 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 click.
Yeah, well, I mean, no wonder. I mean, states like California has one of the lowest literacy rates. Is I think the literacy rates and the math test scores, they're extremely low.
Yeah.
So, maybe there's that big correlation with lockdowns and other states that haven't done big lockdowns.
Yeah. But what I valued about your story is it didn't end with just the disappointment and enough with the coursework that was so disappointing and really inappropriate, right? You didn't, that wasn't the end for you. You said, I'm going to start doing things with my life.
Yeah.
And so one of them was that great article. And I read another one that you wrote. So you've been applying, you're a great writer. You've got skills. And when I read it, I didn't know that you were the author until I saw your name at the bottom.
Thank you.
So I think that's a huge, right? That's a huge thing. So, so what fired you up? Well, you mentioned earlier that there was an issue that came up regarding masks at your school.
Oh yeah, and I wanted to get into that from the beginning of the podcast. I mean, let's get into it. There's a lot to talk about. When I was going into my junior year of high school, I realized that the masks were basically useless. The size of the COVID virus from a micron measurement standpoint is about the size of a BB ball going through a chain link fence.
Comparatively,
right?
Okay.
Compared to the mask, right?
Yep.
So I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna wear the mask. And I went to school and I said, I want a religious exemption.
Okay. Hang on that note, because a lot of people listening might think, oh, but we needed the mask. But it was interesting, the messaging, right? Because at first, like when I couldn't get a construction mask to go into the, the debris, and then once the lockdowns occurred here, then it was, you couldn't even get a mask. There were no masks, and we were fine without masks. And then the message changed, and people it seems like they forgot that it wasn't really, and we already knew from the beginning that it was not an issue of health. It is not something that made a difference unless for something large, like debris or saliva, spit, right? But, a sneeze. I've seen kids, elementary teachers, that's what we deal with. Sneezes, big sneezes sometimes that don't always sorry, that's real, elementary. So, but other than that, right? So you knew, and to you, it was harming you. And certainly as an elementary teacher, it harms children because they need to see mouths. They need to be able to see how to form their lips to make the sounds. Oh my gosh,
it was so scary when my AP literature teacher took her mask off for the first time. I was like, I forgot what you look like.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so it struck a huge chord with you. And so you filled out a form for a religious exemption.
So what I did was I tried to get a religious exemption.
Religious personal belief.
Saying that, it's just against, what I believe in.
Yeah.
And they denied that. So I went as far as getting a medical exemption because the mask.
So you went to your doctor next.
I went to a doctor. I went to a physician. And indeed, the mask caused me great anxiety, and it reduced my oxygen. It basically blocked my oxygen pathway. Which I think there's a law out there that says you can't do that, but that was totally ignored.
Right. That's right.
So I did that, and they accepted that. And, I thought it was important for me to make a stand. I went into my class, and I actually wasn't able to go into school for the first 2 or 3 days of the school.
Okay.
So I missed 3 days.
This was your junior year?
Yes.
Okay. The restart of school.
Yes.
Okay.
And then I walked into my class, and they had me walk to the very back of class, away from everybody else, and they had me sit in this desk with a plexiglass barrier all around me.
So you were separate from everybody else.
Yeah.
The word is segregated.
That's the definition is, yeah.
Right. You were
That's the
separated
word.
from, and that's interesting because having read the laws about it, separating someone based on their religious or personal beliefs is actually, that's not allowed.
I thought it was great discrimination. Yeah. I wasn't able to communicate with any of my classmates, which was really sad.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea of being separated and isolated, and you're a kid at that time, right? You're in high school.
Well, I still am a kid.
It's yeah. It's tough. It's tough enough.
Kind of.
Yeah. And so what else happened?
Yeah. I mean, I was just greatly discriminated against by many of my many of the staff there.
What about your friends?
Friends, I mean, there were some of my friends that saw that and they were like, "Oh, it's nice, good job," almost. But with the staff, it was completely different.
Your friends appreciated that you were not wearing the mask. Is that what you're saying?
Well, they thought it was interesting, so they saw that I made a stand and they acknowledged that. And so I went into school assembly, during the first month or two of school, and I walked in without a mask. Everyone in the entire auditorium was wearing a mask, but I was not.
Yeah.
So the instructors came to me and had me come down from where I was sitting, and they were yelling at me. It was really sad because they didn't understand that I had an exemption. Well, first of all, they didn't understand that I'm not gonna die.
Right.
So there's not really a problem with this virus.
Right.
And regardless, they yelled at me, and one of the wrestling coaches or whatever, he was just yelling so loud at me. He was like, "You're not gonna win this. Get out of here."
Wow.
Like, and I was standing up for myself. I was like, "Hey, you guys can't be kicking me out of an assembly. I have the right to be here. I have an exemption." But they just kept yelling at me. They're like, "You're not gonna win this." And it's funny because that same wrestling coach who cared so much about wearing a mask, and I have this information from some students that actually went to my high school.
Right.
That was the same coach who got other kids ringworm during wrestling.
Oh, wow.
Because I guess he wasn't clean. Because I guess he wasn't cleaning the mats.
Oh, wow.
So the same guy who cares so much about a virus with a 99.37 or more % survival rate, he was more inclined to have me wear a mask than actually to clean the mats at the high school.
Wow. Oh. Wow.
That's the type of stuff that goes on.
That's crazy. I mean, is it hypocritical? Is it just gross? Like, it's just gross.
Yeah.
That's gross. Sorry.
I mean,
yeah.
Of all the problems that could occur, I mean, that's just it's plain idiocy.
At my school, I was in a Zoom, and some teachers were asking, "What do we do about these kids who are pulling their masks off or under under their nose and things like that?" And the response was, they're in trouble. Treat them as if they are blatantly breaking the rules. Wow. These are rule breaker kids, and they will be in trouble. And it was said in a much more harsh way. And it was wild for me to realize, our world has really changed, and they're going to come against these kids. And some of these kids, they were playing hard on the yard. It's hot. It's hot with the mask on.
Yeah.
And it was, and they come in and they were already sweaty, but now that they need air. They need to breathe. And these.
Imagine
kids,
breathing in your own carbon dioxide. That's got to be kind of kind of tough, especially with kids
Because
that
it
are
holds
athletic.
it right there on your face. So yeah,
Have you seen people that go to the beach and they wear the mask, and then after a couple of hours they take it off and they just got this like white
no, I've not
strip
seen
on
that.
their
No,
mouth? You've never seen that?
oh no.
Well, I'm glad you didn't,
Yeah,
honestly.
I've been driving in my own car,
Yeah.
and back, especially in the beginning or in those times, someone on the side of the road shouting at me. I'm like, put on your mask. But I was in my
Yeah.
car. I was alone, and how does that harm you? So
I think that what we got out of the COVID crisis, and I call it a COVID crisis because it really was a crisis.
mhm,
It's so much chaos going
mhm,
around, and what it really brought out was micro tyrants in people. It gave
mhm,
people an ability to really assert themselves as, a force to somewhat be reckoned with,
right,
at the grocery store, at school,
mhm,
anywhere.
right.
They now have this magical right to go and tell you, hey, like, I'm telling you to do this, and if you don't, then you're a bad person.
Right. And I think that in the mainstream media, there was a lot of fear mongering. A lot of people were scared and they didn't know what to do when something so huge as schools shut down and work shut down. I mean, look, some of my
I think,
students' families lost their
yeah.
businesses. They lost their businesses.
hmm
They lost it. Like, that's harsh. They were not allowed to operate. They lost business, and that was the end. I've got another friend. She was working in her 70s, and she needed that job.
Mm.
And as soon as it happened, they laid her off, and she's been surviving, but not with no income. Like, right? So people went through so much, and for it to be that extreme, and then for the blame to be coming out, the people were blamed for these things, right?
Yeah.
So it's with all of that, like what you were saying, how do we now what, right? Now what? We've learned from it. There's people who believe, different things about, what their family members went through. And I think the key is we've got to get along. We've got to love each other, and we need to know, look, as an elementary school teacher, majority of all my years teaching, I leave sticky, right? Because some little person came up and gave me a hug, right? And so I'm sticky. That's a sticky life, right? But that's part of the goodness of life. You love it. You love that sticky hug because it's life. And so we have to be brave enough to live life. What I would tell my coworkers was, I'm alive. My days are in God's hands. And I trust God enough with this life, with this breath, and what comes is in his hands too. And while I think that, we all have a responsibility to do what we can with what we've been given, we also need to have the freedom to live the life that we're in. I don't think we should be yelling at each other about these things.
Mhm.
And if people are fearful, there's fear, right? But I also know that, it's better to walk in joy over fear. So what were you going to say?
Absolutely. No, I think
Yeah.
you hit the nail on the head right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally
Yeah.
agree. Regardless of what you think, you still gotta love each other,
That's right.
love one another, and have mercy.
Yeah. That's it. So a lot of people watching this have different perspectives. And
Yeah.
but I love
And
that
good
we
thing you
have.
have it. In a lot of countries, you're not allowed to have that.
That's right.
So I'm
We
glad
have
you have that
the
different
freedom
perspective.
to have the debate, the discussion, to hear each other's point of views and care about each other. And but what I especially value, this is America, and but we should the freedom to choose what we do with our body, and the freedom to respect one another and get along. That's what's important. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Matthew, for coming on the show. I
Totally.
just want to thank everybody for tuning in today. It's been an exciting discussion to learn about Matthew, his experiences in high school and college, and now as a writer. And with the next plans, I'm excited to see what goes on in your life, Matthew. And for anybody else out there, we'd love to hear from you. And if you'd like to get in contact, you can write to me at my website, traceyschroeder.com. The easy way there is 2024tracy.com. I am on your ballot for State Assembly in District 46, and we're going to keep getting to the heart of these issues and learn from one another. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you so much.
Ciao.